Hey, happy Tuesday. I hope everybody is having an amazing week. I hope it's not too crazy. I know we have back to school and we have football season. That's been happening for me. So if I am MIA, football has consumed my life. Can I tell you a secret? I just barely understand football. This is our fourth or fifth year and I'm just barely still understanding it, but we're doing our best, okay? Both of my kids are playing tackle. Practices are 4 days a week right now. Our first game is Sunday. So I apologize if you have been trying to get a hold of me and I have been not there. I've been somewhere else. I've been consumed by football. But I did make sure to have an amazing idea for a video this week. And so we are going to talk about words and we're going to talk about why words matter. And it's not going to be like a kindergarten words are mean. No. I'm going to tell you really why words matter. I'm going to tell you the nitty-gritties that I have figured out over the years that have made my brain melt a little bit, but have been a game changer. So let's get into it. I want to talk about words in terms of a few different categories. So the first category I want to talk about is going to be in terms of your brain. Some of you might not know this, but I was a psychology major in school. I'm obsessed with it. I love neuroscience. I also love sociology, but that's another thing. But I want to talk about words in terms of your brain and how the words are shaping the connections that you make in your brain, and also how to hack your brain using words. I also want to talk about words in terms of spirit, in terms of the words you're using with spirit and how that is affecting or could be affecting the answers that you're getting. And I also want to talk about words in terms of manifesting, because when I figured out words in terms of manifesting, that was a real game changer also. Let's start off with words in terms of your brain, okay? And now this is very, very complicated, and I'm not going to use the sciencey words. I probably won't pronounce them right. I probably will forget them in the middle of me saying them, so I'm just going to use words that come out of my mouth, okay? Because we're doing the best we can. In terms of your brain, the words that you are using are going to determine the path that your brain is going to take, okay? Because your brain is a computer, and I know you've heard that before, but it really truly is. Even though your brain is a supercomputer, I'm really bad at understanding computers, let alone super ones. So we're going to talk about it in terms of roads, in terms of paths, okay? So your brain is getting a lot of information all of the time, and it is up to your brain to decide what of the information you're getting gets to stay and what gets to leave, because your brain can't hold it all, and you don't need to hold it all. There's a lot of sensations that we don't need to be aware of 24/7. And for our neurospicy people, we know what it's like to be aware of something that you don't want to be aware of 24/7. Okay, so our brains are just so good at their job, or fingers crossed they're supposed to be, right? Because I know the world we live in, but let's pretend our brains are so good at our job and they are getting all of this information in, and then they're saying all of the stuff that we don't need. Okay, so the pathways in your brain are going to be this kind of metaphor for the information that you're getting in and what information stays and what information goes. Okay, are you with me so far? Now, the real question becomes, how does your brain decide what stays and what goes? How does your brain, this master of your human body controlling all of your functions, how does it decide what is actually important? This is where the words are going to come in. This is where our word choice matters. Now, when I talk about words, the first thing that I want you to keep in mind is I am not talking about definitions of words. I'm talking about how you personally define them, how you personally feel about them, what information you have assigned to the words, okay? For example, I am part of the itty bitty titty committee. I know what I'm working with, and it's like this much, okay? I'm fully aware of where I've landed with this human body in terms of bra size, okay? So I know where I'm at. I just think it's a joke at this point, right? I have done all my work. I've come to terms with where I've landed, and I think it's just kind of funny because that's just how I am. That's just where I've landed. And if you can tell me a joke that I have not heard before about my pancake club that I have on my chest, and it will make me laugh, I don't feel bad about myself, okay? Other people might be more self-conscious about what they're working with up top. And that's a very clear example of the words that you assign meaning to, not necessarily the words of the meanings. We all have different meanings for different words. We all have different feelings for different words. So whatever you have assigned these words to be, your personal definition for them. So keep that in mind as we talk about this. But how did I get there? How did I get to thinking that my pancake club is a joke and not being offended about it? I'm so glad you asked. Let me talk about the pathways in your brain now, okay? So when we hear a word, when we get this information in, we have to, or our brain has to, decide where that information goes, decide where that word goes, right? So when I hear pancake club, itty bitty titty committee, does my brain take path A, where I feel offended, or does my brain take path B, where I think it's a joke? Growing up in the Americanized society that I grew up in, we as women, as young girls, were taught we were supposed to look a very certain way. And when we didn't look that way, we were taught we were supposed to feel bad about it. We were taught we were supposed to try to change ourselves. We were taught all these things that we were not okay the way that we were. We needed to fit into this ideal model. So, in all of that subconscious learning, and that's important because that was subconsciously learned through media, through culture, through all of these things. So, through subconscious learning as a child and as I was growing up, and as my brain was getting all of this information in and understanding human bodies in a new, sort of more mature way, I already had all this media information telling me how I was supposed to feel about it. And so my brain said, oh, the media has already told me how I'm supposed to feel. I'm supposed to feel offended. I'm supposed to feel sad. I'm supposed to feel not good enough, right? These are all the things that I had, subconsciously learned growing up through the media, through the culture, that I was supposed to feel path A. I was supposed to feel some type of way about it. And so my brain said, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be offended. I'm supposed to want to change. Here's where it gets really tricky though, because every time that stimulus came in and my brain was like, I'm supposed to feel path A, I'm supposed to take path A, every time my brain took path A, it strengthened that connection. It strengthened that road. It made it solid. It paved the potholes. It made like guards on it. It painted all the lines. Every time I got information into my brain and my brain went, oh, it's path A. Oh, it's path A. Path A got a makeover. Path A became a super center road. The stronger the path gets, the bigger the road, the more it is established, and the more strength that it has to it, the harder it can be to pull your thoughts back off of it because your brain has such a strong, solid pathway. It knows what it's supposed to do. And so when that stimulus comes in, it automatically does it. And you're thinking these things about yourself before you have any chance to really even realize what you're doing, before you have any chance to kind of pull back and say, wait a second, I have a body, it's keeping me alive. What more do I actually want, right? And so we are taught to take this path, and we're subconsciously conditioned to take this path. I sometimes call it body guides. We'll get to that in a second, okay? So we're taking this path and we are thinking these thoughts before we even know what we're doing. And we often get stuck in this cycle. We get stuck in this cycle of talking down about ourselves, of feeling like I needed bigger boobs, of feeling like I didn't fit in, of feeling like I couldn't be a 10 because I didn't check all the boxes, right? Because we are so conditioned in a lot of cases from such an early age, before we even know what is going on, the pathways that we have been taught or that we've been told we need to take tend to be what feels like the only pathway. It feels like there is no other option. It feels like I have been taking path A for so long that there is no way I could ever love myself the way that I was. There was no way that I could ever step out of it because the pathway B, where I thought it was a joke, was so small. It was so non-existent that there was almost no chance, almost no chance of the connections getting away from path A and going to path B instead. It was nearly impossible because A was so strong. It was pulling so much. It was established for so long. How could path B even exist? Now, sometimes I call this whole concept a body guide, okay? Because we can relate to spirit what's happening in our brain. And that happens too much for me to be comfortable with. The whole as above, so below thing is too accurate and it freaks me out a little bit, okay? Because then we get into a chicken and an egg situation, right? Like, is spirit influencing human or is human influencing spirit? It's both. It's both. Okay, it's uncomfortably both. But let's talk about it in terms of the pathways in our brain being a body guide or a guide that comes from our body. They tend to not have a lot of consciousness to them, but they tend to keep us on a certain pathway. Now, just for the record, body guides can develop more consciousness to them, meaning they can have a little bit more of their own like thought processes to them. They don't always. But if you are going through what I'm about to explain to you, if you're going through the whole thing and you feel like your body guide is a little bit more feisty than what I'm explaining, if you feel like it's a little bit more stick in the mud than what I'm talking about, it happens, okay? Just keep on the process. You are in control of this, I promise you. It might take a while, but you really are in control, okay? Now, let's talk about body guides and how they appear, why they appear. Because like most things, these guides are created, they appear out of a need. Okay, let's go back to my little pink kit club example. All right, I was picked on a lot in middle school for sure, in high school as well. I was not popular. Okay, I was a very weird child. Go figure. I had a lot of stuff going on. I had my own weird stuff going on. People are like, she's kind of weird. I get it. Okay, I don't blame you guys. I was weird. But I was really nervous. I had a lot of social anxiety. I got picked on a lot. I got ridiculed a lot, and I knew what they were going to pick on me about. Okay, like I had a modicum of self-awareness there. And so I would wear really baggy clothes. And here's how that comes into these pathways. Here's how the body guides come into play, right? So let's say I get dressed in the morning and I put on a cute little outfit and I look in the mirror and I realize it's not as tight as I normally wear. I would have this thought in my head that goes, you can't wear that. It's not baggy enough. You can't wear that. They can see you don't have boobs. You can't wear that because you could be put in an unsafe situation by the ridicule, by the being ganged up on, by whatever it is. I can't wear this because in some way, shape, or form, it makes me feel unsafe. And so we already have the media telling me I don't look the way that I'm supposed to look. And then I have a body guide telling me if I look the way that I do in this clothing, I could be unsafe. And so we have these two things that are working together, and it almost feels like they're working against us, right? But the media is a thing in itself. The body guide is there in an effort to make you feel safe, or in an effort to correct something that you felt like needed to be corrected, right? But they kind of team up on us, they kind of gang up on us, and it kind of just makes this spiral situation, right? Like, how do we even get out of that? The good news is this video is proof that you can get out of it. The fact that I'm here talking about my quadruple A's, which got smaller after being pregnant, which got smaller after breastfeeding than they were before I was breastfeeding. What's wrong with me? Okay. But anyway, the fact that I'm making this video, joking and laughing with you about it, is proof. It's proof that you can get out of this spiral. Okay. So to do this, there's two different things that I want you guys to do. And it's really, you've heard it before, but they're so important. Okay. Now, to rework path A versus path B, those neural connections in our brain, we are going to fake it till we make it, okay? Fake it till you make it. You hear this all the time, but it truly is like life-changing. The problem is that it doesn't work the first time. It doesn't immediately work. It's a slow burn, okay? But the fake it till you make it is going to help to pull back those connections from path A and put them to path B instead. And path B is literally whatever you want to make it. Now, for this whole situation that I had going on, or rather didn't have going on in the chest area, I really just kind of had the realization one day. I was like, this is dumb. I was like, this is so dumb. I am not going to worry about something that I cannot change. I don't want to get a boob job. I don't want to put weird things in my body. I can't change this. This is where my body's at. This is dumb. Okay. And I really did just kind of decide one day. I was like, this is dumb. That was my thought. Okay. And listen, I operate out of spite. Okay. That's just part of who I am. So I was like, I was spiteful about it. I was like, I'm not going to subscribe to that. That is dumb. I'm not doing Path A. I'm not doing media. That is dumb. I'm not in high school anymore. I don't need to worry about it. That is dumb. However, Path A is still so strong, right? So me just having a realization and deciding that it was dumb didn't actually change the way that I was thinking about it. So even though I had decided it was dumb, when I would look in the mirror, I would still have path A connections. I would still remember in my brain, I would remember without wanting to that the media said I was less than. I would remember that I used to feel really unsafe. My body guide would lead me to these thoughts because as far as my body guide was concerned, I could still be unsafe, right? And so even though I decided it was dumb, all of the pathways, all of the body guides were still the way that they were, right? Like those hadn't changed. But what did change was coming to the realization that this is dumb kind of snapped me out of it. It made me realize that I did want to change, that I did want to look at myself differently, that I didn't want to live the rest of my life with this neural pathway, with this body guide connection that I had. Now, at this point in my life, at that point in time, I had this sneaking suspicion of the process that I'm about to tell you, but I didn't have the details, okay? And so the process that I went through took a really long time. It was really crude. It was really rudimentary, and I'm just going to save you guys the hassle and tell you what I've learned and tell you how I applied it and hopefully it takes you way less time and it's way smoother than it took me. Okay, so I did this process, but it took me an extra long time. It was really crude. I'm going to explain it to you in terms of what I know now. So once I sort of snapped out of it, I woke up, I decided I wanted to make a change. We entered into the faking it until you're making it stage. Okay, fake it till you make it. And I just decided, fuck this system. I'm not going to talk about myself like that anymore. And so I started faking it till I'm making it. And I started reworking what I told myself every time I looked in front of the mirror. So the way that this was applied was really crude. It drove me insane because what would happen was I would see my cute little outfit. I would remember what the media said. I would remember what my body guide told me. And then I would make a conscious choice and be like, fuck that. I look fire, right? And we didn't say fire back then. I look fly, okay? We were looking fly. Did I believe it? Did I feel fly in my body? Absolutely not. But I told myself every single time I realized I was having these thoughts, I realized I was taking path A, I realized body guides were at play, every single time I would pull myself back and I would tell myself how fire I looked, okay, how fly I looked. I did not, let me be so clear, I did not feel fire. I did not feel fly. I felt like I needed to be in baggy clothes for the rest of my life. I felt like a little peasant child, but I told myself I looked fly, okay? And look at me, I look so fly now. Now, in doing that process over and over and over again, I realized in myself, I snapped out of it. I said, I don't need to feel afraid anymore. I'm not in high school. Nobody that I'm going to be around is going to make me feel unsafe, right? And so I was very slowly reworking all of the body guide kind of safety beliefs as I was kind of just being spiteful and being like, fuck that, I look fly, I look fire. I was very slowly proving to my nervous system that I was safe, very slowly proving to myself that I didn't need to feel unsafe anymore. And so I was reworking the body guide again in a very crude, in a very slow way. But let me tell you what I know now. Let me tell you a slightly faster way to kind of rework this body guide and take it from like pushing you onto path A and helping guide you onto path B, guide you into the thought process that you want instead. My microphone has dipped out. It has left the building. It's no longer working. So I apologize for the audio echo change. That's tomorrow's problem. Let's just keep going. So to make it easier on our human brain, we are going to imagine this body guide as being a being, right? Because when we typically have like a conversation, which we're going to need to have a conversation with these belief systems that we typically have it not with like an inanimate object like a tissue box. We typically have a conversation with a being. So it is helpful to imagine these body guides, these belief systems as a being that you can speak to. Now, the visualization for this oftentimes comes without you even trying. So me personally, body guides often appear as like big bouncer men, big like Maui looking island dudes. And it's really funny because my husband happens to look like a big bouncer island dude. So, just a fun little tidbit. But my body guides often appear as like these big, literally bouncer looking dudes that you cannot pass. And so it can be a little intimidating having a conversation, telling this bouncer looking like visualization in my brain what I want to do. But that's exactly what I want you to do. I want you to tell this belief system what you want it to do instead of what it's doing. Now, the kicker is you have to be nice to yourself about it, right? Because we are the ones that have created these body guides. We have created these unconscious belief systems. And oftentimes it's even our inner child that has created them. Are you going to be mean to a child? Are you really going to be mean to a child? Don't do it. Don't be mean to yourself, right? So instead of being like, you're dumb, say this instead, you're going to say, I know why we believe this. I know why this system of belief has been created. And you need to think about the first time that you believed this, the first time that this system was created. And I know that seems like, how am I ever going to know when I first thought this? But you will. Your body remembers. You remember. Somewhere inside of you, you know. And so you think, when did I first start believing this? And typically it'll pop right into your brain. If it doesn't, there might be other things involved. But for an easy peasy example of a body guide belief system, it should pop right into your brain. You should have a thought, oh, when I was 5, I maybe saw this thing on TV. And you don't need to remember all the details, but you need to remember what it was like to be that 5-year-old. You need to remember what it was like to believe this thing for the first time. And once you get to that moment, once you remember, once you can feel it, you say, oh, I know why this was created. I know why we needed this at that time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making this. Thank you so much for creating this system that has kept me safe, that has kept me alive, has kept me here until this point in time. Thank you so much for doing that. But we don't need it anymore. We don't need this system anymore. We're no longer in that situation. We no longer feel unsafe. We no longer have to deal with these people. Thank you so much for keeping me here, but we don't need it anymore. Please, can you tell me this instead? Please, when you before would tell me this belief system, when you before would tell me this pathway, can we please change that? Because this is where we are now, because this is what keeps me safe now, because this is what gets me to be happy and healthy and here for tomorrow. I need you to say this to me from now on. Thank you so much for what you have done. This is what you're going to do for me now. And giving that body guide something else to do instead is a really important step. A lot of times these body guides have been created to help. They want to help us. And so if you just say, don't say that anymore, they kind of just stare at you. They're like, well, what am I supposed to do? So assigning them to help you in another aspect of your life is a very important step. It's a very game-changing step. I know I say game changer all the time, but it does change the game. And you don't have to assign them exactly the same thing that they were doing before. It can be very helpful if you can keep it on the same path. If I can reassign this guide from saying your boobs are too small to saying you enjoy your life, you can laugh at yourself, that is really important. That's along the same energy path, along the same energy structure, along the same creation pathway. But it doesn't have to be. You can reassign them to say, hey, remind me I'm super powerful. Hey, remind me I like to wear earrings. Hey, remind me this thing brings me joy. You can reassign them to anything. But if you keep them on that same path, if you keep them on the same sort of energy structure they were intended for, they can have a little extra oomph because that's what they've been doing. That's what they've been growing and building. And that's literally what they've been made for. Being able to identify these body guides, these belief systems in ourselves takes the emotional aspect of, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm not somebody that can enjoy my life. This isn't me. It takes that emotional pressure off of those neural pathways, off of that path A that's so strong. It takes the emotional aspect and it separates it from the neural pathway aspect. And it lets you work on one step at a time. It lets you kind of dissect and make it just a little less overwhelming. Both are equally strong, both are equally important, but if you are able to separate them into a part 1 and a part 2, it can just be a little bit of a relief because it doesn't feel like you have to up and change all of these major things all about you at one time. And when we are able to identify that belief system and to work with our inner child or whoever it was that created this belief system and to make them feel safe, because that's what most of this comes back down to in some way, shape, or form is safety. You can make that part of yourself feel safe. You can have essentially taken a huge portion of the emotional aspect and put it over here, and then keep your neural pathway aspect and put it over here. And you can work on them as they come up, but you don't have to do it the convoluted kind of messy, crude way that I did and try to figure out where one ends and the other starts. You absolutely can. It's gotten me here. I operate out of spite. I'm stubborn. I do things the hard way, but it is a little bit easier to pull them apart and to work on them one step at a time. Just to recap, before we keep going, you are going to fake it till you make it. You are going to say every single time you have this thought, you're going to pull it back for a second and you're going to fake it until you make it. You're going to say whatever it is you want to hear instead. Every single time, okay? And it's slow, it's a slow burn, but the slow burns are the strongest. The slow burns are a reworking of the foundation, which means once you have it set, once you have it strong and steady, you can build something amazing and beautiful off of it. Okay, so you're gonna fake it till you make it. Even if you don't believe it in your body, even if you have trouble getting the words from your brain through your mouth into the universe, do it anyway. Fake it till you make it, okay? And you're going to rework your body guide. You're going to work on these belief codes. You're going to remember the first time that you have felt it or seen it or believed it. You're going to speak into your visualization belief system being. You're going to speak into it a gratefulness and a thankfulness for what it has done. You're going to kindly, you're going to be nice about it, ask them to say something else instead, because you're not who you used to be. You're not where you were or who you were when that was created. You are somewhere here now that is safe and that is ready to further the life the way that you want to further it. Okay, you're going to fake it till you make it, and you're going to rework your belief systems. You're going to let those body guides know who's in charge. Now let's talk about specifically how words matter in our spirit communication. I have talked about how to ask spirit questions before because spirit can be tricky. They can be tricky little finicky things, right? And some of it's on purpose and some of it's not on purpose. But the word choice that we use, and again, the way the words are defined, is going to make a really, really big difference in how and what spirit is telling you. For this next portion, we are going to use the example of the word war, okay? Because I'm so tired of spirit talking about war. Spirit is like, there's a war coming, there's a war happening, this war is in your future, this war is in your past. Y'all, there's always a spirit war. Sometimes it involves us, sometimes it's none of our business. There's always some type of war happening because if you think about it, in the entire universe, there's some war happening somewhere at all times. And also, if you want to think about it a little more, which I don't even know if I recommend, but we're going to say it anyway, time is timey-wimey. So because time is a cycle and because time is a filter and because time is like a spider web of craziness, if a war happened at one point, a war is always happening. Okay, so there is quite literally always a war happening at somewhere in the universe at some point in time. Okay, yet spirit always comes and they tell there's a war, and they make it really dramatic. Okay, and I'm really just tired of spirit being so dramatic about there's a war coming, and so we're just going to use that as an example because I'm tired of it. I'm going to share with you some 4 real life examples, some 4 real life processes that I have gone through with spirit in terms of the word war. And as I talk through these and as I explain these to you, I want you to just keep this in mind as you are communicating with spirit. I want you to keep in mind, I want you to really see how one word, the word war, has so many different definitions, has so many different meanings, has so many different possible outcomes and results and histories involved in it. And I want you to just keep this in your brain as you are communicating with spirit in the future and as you are getting information from spirit and as you are asking spirit questions, because the way that you define every single word in your question has the potential to change the way a spirit answers you. And the way that you personally define a word, such as war, could be defined very differently by the spirit that is telling you this word as well. First time that spirit came to me and like freaked me out about a war, I took it really, really seriously because I was like, oh my God, there's a war. That's a problem. War is a problem, right? But I didn't understand at that point that there's quite literally always a war. And so I really freaked out about it. I was invested. I was trying to figure out what was happening, who was going on, what was happening where, right? Because if there's a war, how can I help? And oh no, there's a war, right? But it turns out this particular one instance of war that they were talking to me about didn't actually affect my human at all. The way that it affected my human the most was by having me deep dive into information about who was at war. And these were some aliens that I had never heard of before that I wound up on a really weird like subreddit thread on the internet about these aliens. And it really like kicked off my alien introduction. We'll just put it that way, right? But the war itself didn't actually affect my human. And so I was like having stress over a war that was never actually affecting my human life at that very moment. The way that it was affecting my human life, though, was through research. And so, is it possible that spirit told me about this war that had nothing to do with me just so that I would research these beings, just so that I would expand my mind and learn about the existence of a type of being that I had no idea existed? Yes, completely possible. In fact, that's probably what happened because nothing came about it. I, at one point, just stopped getting all information altogether about this war, but I did retain all of the types of beings and all of the research that I had done. So, yeah, that's one way that spirit uses the word war. That's one way that I defined war in thinking it was going to affect my human and thinking I was going to have real life human consequences of that war when I never asked spirit at that point if it was a war that involved my human or not. But you can bet that I remember to ask spirit if the whatever war they're talking about involves my human, right? So they gave me the word war to likely start me on a path of research, but not actually affect my human at all. And that is not how my human defined the word war at that exact moment in time. I have never been able to get confirmation one way or another about if the reason I was given that word war was to actually start me on this research path, because there are a lot of explanations for why I did not, as a human or even as a spiritual being, get any more information about that war. Another reason could be that I shifted timelines, I shifted realities, I shifted to a place where that war no longer affected. I had shifted in a way that what was happening before was no longer my current reality. And I think that that's a lot of what is happening at this very moment in time, because one of the major things that I keep hearing is that there is this huge war because there's all of these beings that don't want new Earth. And that is very true. There are beings that don't want new Earth to come about because in the entire universe, nobody has to think exactly the same. There are always two sides to the coin, right? And so, of course, within the entire universe, there are a group of beings that think new Earth should not happen. And they have their point of view and they have their reasons. And they often exist in a reality that is going to be or is different from the reality that we are either in or shifting to. And so the changing in reality and the changing in timelines, because we used to change more in timelines than we did in realities, but I think at this point we're changing realities more than we're changing timelines. Timelines are going and realities are going up, right? Just ignore me, okay? So shifting in realities can be another reason why we get this like, there's a war, and nothing comes to it. And so one of the things that I always ask is it going to affect my human and is it in my reality? Because sometimes even if it isn't affecting my human, it will affect me on a spiritual level. We can feel it, we can feel energies or whatever. But if we shift out of realities, or if the plan is to shift out of realities, we might never see that realization come to life. And you can really start to see through these examples the differences in definitions that one word can have, because even though we might all define the word war as two types of beings or two groups fighting, the way that it plays out has a insurmountable number of possibilities. Like, we cannot understand, especially as a human, all of the ways that this can actually play out. And we can have the same definition for a word, but the way that that word is applied can be very, very different. And the way that we see things play out is forever changing, always changing. Now let's talk about the way that our word choices can change the way we get an answer. And more specifically, a single word in our question could change the way that we get an answer. For this example, I'm going to use the pushback method, but I want you to really apply it in the way that you ask spirit questions, because spirit, especially our guides or our teams, our ancestors, our deities even, a lot of times they have rules on what they can or can't tell us. I'm not going to get into it right now, but I do have previous videos on how to ask spirit questions. And I think I even have a journal page or a worksheet on getting to the nitty gritty of asking spirit questions, because I want to show you how one word can change the way spirit answers. Let's talk about the pushback method for a second, okay? This is a method that I use in trying to figure out how close to correct I am in my word choice, in my answer, in whatever I'm trying to figure out. And the way that I do this is I use my body as a guide. I say a statement and I see if the statement flows. I see if it comes out easy. I see if it's easy breezy, beautiful cover girl, or if there is pushback to it, if it's hard to get out, if it feels like bumps and potholes and roadblocks. And if I do feel those bumps and potholes and roadblocks, where do I feel them? What word does it start at? What word am I having the most trouble with? That's why I call it pushback method, right? Because I'm actively seeking out if there is pushback in what I am saying or not. For example, I could say, human Rebecca is making this video for you right now. And that came out so easy. I didn't even have to think about it. I didn't feel pushback on any of the word choices. Most likely, all of those words are true. Human Rebecca is sitting here making you guys a video. You're sitting there watching Human Rebecca's video, right? Like, this is the flow. This is the easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. This is no pushback. This is more close, or as close to the truth as we can get right now. When I am talking about the pushback method, when I am teaching it, I always caution people to avoid names, because here's the thing. I could say Rebecca's favorite color is purple, right? But who is Rebecca? Okay, human Rebecca, I know who I am. I'm me right now, but there is a spirit version of Rebecca also. And what gets even more complicated is there's more than one spirit version of Rebecca. So if I were to simply say spirit Rebecca is doing this, when I say spirit Rebecca and then try to say the next part, there's like a little bit of panic that comes up in my body. Spirit Rebecca, which one? Which one? What spirit Rebecca? What is spirit Rebecca doing? Because there's spirit Rebecca that is the astral part of my human orange slice, right? Like my human Rebecca can go off and be a spirit all in its own. But there's also a spiritual Rebecca that is a fuller. It is a orange, and her name is also Rebecca. It's very confusing, I know, and that's the point. Spirit Rebecca, even though I may or may not be aware of how many versions are out there, I am not defining which version I am talking about. I would say the spirit of human Rebecca right now, or I could say the whole orange of spirit Rebecca. It's very complicated. And so I typically tell people to avoid using a name in the pushback method because names are a very complex thing in spirit. They hold energy, they hold purpose, they hold meaning. And in the definition of a name, there can be some secrecy. There can be secrecy to what a spirit's true name is, what their original name is, what their chosen name is, because again, that holds power. It holds a power, it holds a sort of influence there. And so trying to use a name in asking spirit question or in even just using the pushback method can very, very quickly get very convoluted. So let's apply this, right? Human Rebecca is making a video for you right now. That felt okay. That felt like everything came out at the same pace, at the same flow. I didn't really feel any strong pushback on it. But if I were to say Spirit Rebecca is making this video for you right now, that almost comes out like a question. Is she? I don't know, because I didn't define to myself, to spirit, to you guys, to the universe, who I meant when I said Spirit Rebecca. Did I mean the little orange slice that came into my human? She's making the video for you right now. Did I mean that fuller orange that is also its own spirit, that is also rocking its own fuller existence right now? What version of Spirit Rebecca am I talking about? I did not define it. And because I did not define it, I cannot get a solid grasp on the truth of it. I cannot get a solid grasp on which version I am talking about because there was no definition. And in return, if Spirit is answering me, if Spirit is trying to give me the answer to that question because I either asked them or because they're part of my team and that's their job, I did not define it. And so they can also give a sort of convoluted, confusing feeling for an answer. They can give no answer at all, or they can pick which one they think I'm talking about and try to give an answer, but it might not be the same one that I'm actually trying to refer to. It could be I'm referring to my orange slice and they're talking about my fuller because it wasn't defined, because it wasn't an exact, this is how I am defining this word in this question. And so if we go back to that example of Spirit saying, there's a war happening. How are we defining war? Am I giving the definition in how I view the word war? Am I telling Spirit? Am I showing Spirit with my words, with my emotions, with my visualization? Am I defining the word war and how I want it defined and how we're going to have this conversation? Or is Spirit picking a definition for it? And if they've picked a definition for it, is it the same definition as me? Are we on the same page? Y'all, define the words that you are using. I'm begging you, because there is so many ways that we are missing out on the information that we want because we are not using the words that we are truly wanting the information about, right? If I am saying I want to know what that fuller version of Rebecca is doing right now, is she involved in this war? Am I defining what fuller version of me am I talking about? Am I defining specifically the way, the type, the place of the war? There's so many different answers that I could get if I did not define Rebecca or war. I could get a different answer from literally every single spirit that I ask. If without a definition, if I could get a different answer, and every single one of them could be true because I am not speaking clearly, because they are not speaking clearly, because we are having a miscommunication on one or two single words that are causing really, really big differences in the answers that we can give, or that we can get rather. And so I am begging you, please pay attention to your word choices in all manners of things, but especially when you are trying to get answers from Spirit. Okay, let's go on to the very last part. I'm going to move this along because the video is getting a little long and this is a lot of information I'm throwing at you guys. I'm sure at this point, many of your brains are a little bit melty. So we're just going to do the one last manifesting one, and then that's going to be it for today, okay? Even though I'm going to talk about this last part very specifically in terms of our word choice in manifesting, I want you to apply it all the way to the first one that we talked about in how we view ourselves, right? So we're manifesting whatever we're manifesting, but what if you're manifesting the type of version that you want to be? What if you're manifesting the way that your brain operates, right? So apply all of it together. But I'm just going to very specifically, for the sake of not melting our brains any more than they already are, we're just going to specifically talk about it in this one way of manifesting, but apply it through the whole thing, okay? I understand most things, especially spirit things, but I understand most things in terms of energy, right? That's how my psychic abilities work. That's how spiritual things like show up for me. Everybody's different. My thing is energy, okay? So manifesting, I think of in terms of energy, but in terms of the energy that we are calling into us. We get the energy in that we put out. I know you've heard that before, but it is very true. So, what we are thinking, the way our brain is operating, those neural pathways, those body guides, that is what we are putting out. That is where a lot of the issues come when we're trying to manifest something, because we are unconsciously putting out all of these other things that are going against what our brain is saying. It's very complicated, okay? So apply it all together. But in terms of manifesting, I am telling the universe with what I put out the type of energy that I want to come in. And so if I am very specifically telling the universe what I want to spend a good amount of time not just coming up exactly the word choice that I use, but in defining the way that I use those words as well. And again, it's not the way that those words are generally defined. It's not the way that media defines them. It's the way that I am personally defining them. It's the way that the energy is coming off of my body that is defining these words. And so again, one single word choice can really change the way that the energy is coming off of you and the way that the energy is coming in. I like to use money or abundance as my example for manifesting, because I had to, and I continue to work a lot on manifesting money. There's a lot that is involved in terms of like our neural pathways, our body guides, the media, capitalism, all of these things. There's so much involved in it, right? But when I got to the point of wanting to actually tell the universe what I wanted, I spent a really long time looking at how I defined every word. And I don't actually want money. I don't actually care about money. What I want is the freedom, the abundance, the ability to give, the ability to provide, the ability to be safe for other people, the ability to not have to set my alarm clock in the morning and still be able to do and take care of all of the things that I want to do and take care of. How do I even put that into a simple sentence though, right? Like that's a lot. So that is where I spent a lot of time in finding what the energy was that I wanted to put out. I felt the energy, and then I would find the words that matched, and I would use that pushback method to match these words to as close to the energy that I wanted, right? And there's a lot of trial and error, and that's okay, but I'm doing it as an active, lifelong process. I'm allowed to adjust it, I'm allowed to change it, I'm allowed to grow and learn more from it. So if I were to tell the universe, I want money, I am not speaking to the way that I want the money to come in. I'm not speaking to what I want the money to give me. I'm speaking to simply, I want money. I want my bank account to have numbers. That's it. I don't care about anything else other than my bank account having numbers. But that's not true. I care about everything else. The bank account having numbers is actually not what I care about. I care about all of the things that come with that bank account having numbers. And at the same time, if I am saying only money, I am directly speaking to the fears that I have learned, these learned behaviors involving in money, right? So money brings more problems. The more money, the more problems. Have you heard that? Or I was also subconsciously taught through my culture that having more money just automatically makes you a bad person. It makes you a worse person, right? And so I don't want to be a bad person. Why would I want all of this money and have this constant fear of, am I a bad person, right? So if I'm only saying to the universe that I want money, I am speaking to all of these fears, and I am missing out on everything around the concept of money that I am actually wanting to pull in. When I came to the realization that it's not actually the bank account numbers I care about, and that I had all of these unconscious beliefs that I had learned, all of these fears that I have learned, when I realized all of that, I was like, this is too much. How am I supposed to ever conquer all of these things? And you just do it one thing at a time. That's the secret. You just take one little step at a time. We just rewrite the pathways one pathway at a time. We rewrite the body guides one body guide at a time. We define the words one word at a time. Take it as slow as you need to do it. Don't worry about doing it all at once. Don't worry about trying to make it hit hard and fast. You want the slow burn. You want that foundational strength. So instead, what I did is I said, okay, well, I truly want the abundance. What does abundance look like to me? And I spent some time defining that word abundance. And abundance is not something that I can define in one word. It's not something that I can define in a single sentence. It's a feeling that I want. And so I told spirit, I told the universe, to me, I am defining abundance with these feelings. I am defining abundance as having this lifestyle. This is how I am defining abundance. I am taking that single word abundance and I'm putting all of this emotion, all of this energy, all of this definition into it. And when I go back and I rework my manifestations, when I make them and I do them and I make them solid, I say, I define abundance as these emotions. That is what I want. That is what I want when I say I want abundance. When I speak abundance into my life, when I write abundance down, when I make it a fact in the universe, that single word abundance has all of these emotions, all of this energy connected to it. And I make sure to say every single time, this is what I mean when I say I want abundance. Once I was able to define abundance, once I was able to say, this is what I mean by abundance, I mean this feeling, I mean this emotion, I mean this is what I want to do with it, I mean this is the life I want to live, then I can take every single one of those I mean things, and I can look at my pathways, I can look at my body guides, I can say, I deserve abundance. What does my brain say? Does my brain believe it? Does my body believe it? If I don't believe it, can I find a body guide? Is there somebody there that I can talk to about it? Do I remember why I don't believe it? Do I remember a feeling from a childhood, right? Once you are able to have a definition of a word, even if that definition does not have other words involved, once you are able to say, this is what I mean by this word, you can check all of your other systems and you can see what's popping up. You can see what's fighting back and you can handle it one step at a time, just one step at a time. We're not doing it all at once because it can feel very overwhelming when we see all of these things that are preventing us from what we want. It feels almost impossible. But if we take one step at a time, and here's the trick, it's not as hard as it seems. Once we pull it apart one step at a time, once you get in the habit of being able to recognize and to work on it and to flow, guys, it's so much easier. It flows, it goes. You can do it so much smoother than it feels like at first. I promise you will get there if you keep on that slow burn. If you really build up that foundation before you know it, your foundation is going to be huge and you will have built a castle on it before you even realize you're doing it. So here's my last little hack. The last thing that I'm going to leave you guys with. Hopefully you were able to pull all of this full circle. Hopefully my individual examples are just little bookmarks for you to grow and realize and make your own discoveries about. But I have one more little tidbit that I want to share with you to end the video, and I call it hacking. Okay, hack your brain, hack your system, hack whatever you need to hack to make it work for you. One of the reasons that I harp over and over again about being nice to yourself is because if you are able to come into a situation or realization that there's something about yourself that you want to work on, that you want to change, but you are not in a place where you feel safe enough or you have enough spoons, you have enough time or consciousness to work on it, which is a lot of things right now, right? When we enter a situation where we realize we need to work on something, but we cannot do it right now, if we come into that with a sense of like, God, we're never able to make the changes we want, I'm not good enough for this, I wish I was better. If we come into that kind of self-deprivation, we're going to pull back. We're going to feel shame. And that is not going to get us anywhere. But if we go into that situation with a sense of just like, oh, this is a thing, check that out, I realize this, and we don't feel some type of way about it, we don't feel shame, we don't feel guilt, we don't feel like we're not good enough, if we can go into that situation, just be like, oh, that's a thing, then you offer the opportunity to hack that situation until you can get to the point where you can work on it. Now, what the fuck does that even mean? I'm so glad you asked. When I realized that I wanted more abundance, but I was not in a place where I could dive into the childhood things that had taught me the fear of money and that had taught me all of these unconscious beliefs, I was like, fuck that, right? Another like, fuck this system, but I couldn't do anything about it yet. So what I said was, okay, I am not in a place where I can deal with this, but again, fuck that system. I'm not subscribing to that anymore. I hacked my brain. Okay, so what I mean by that is I would go to the store and I would have all this panic when the bill comes, right? Like I would go to the store and buy groceries and have all of this panic. It didn't matter how much money was in my system. It didn't matter Sorry, it didn't matter how much money was in my bank account. It didn't matter what I was buying the things for. It didn't matter if it was groceries to feed my family. The sheer fact that I had to pay for something sent my body into a shock. And I was like, oh my God, that's a problem. I cannot live this way. But I also was not in a place where I could deal with it. So instead, what I said to myself, because fuck that system, is every time I spend money, I do it in spite of capitalism. Because y'all know I hate capitalism. I was already well on into my fuck capitalism system, and specifically like what we see in the United States right now: corporations, corporate capitalism. Fuck that, right? So when I realized I fucking hated corporates and capitalization, and I had a fear of money and I needed to work on that, but this was stupid, I simply started telling myself every time I swiped my card, every time I spent money, I did it in spite of capitalism, because capitalism tells me that I need to work, I need to save, I need to grind, I need to hustle. It tells me I do not deserve these things unless I work harder than everybody else to get them, and that is dumb as fuck. I deserve everything. Fuck capitalism. Every time I spent money, I did it with the goal of fucking capitalism. I did it in spite of capitalism. And I was able to start to hack my system. I was able to show my body, my nervous system, a new way of responding to this stressor, a new way of handling what I was seeing that I was having a hard time coming to terms with, in a way that allowed me to just dip my toe into the water, allowed me to start on a path, to start a path B, a neural pathway that was a little bit different. It just let me lay a little bit foundation, just a few pebbles along the way, right? It wasn't something I was diving into. It wasn't something that I was in a space that I could jump into, but I knew I needed to, and I knew that was dumb. And I just wanted to give myself a chance for the future. And so I hacked it. I hacked my brain. I hacked my thinking. I redefined the way that I saw spending money. I redefined the way that I saw grocery shopping and paying bills. I redefined it, and I just gave myself a little chance. I just started a little path B, a little second option that was specifically against everything that I thought was dumb. I snapped out of it. I realized it was dumb, and I knew I needed to make a change, but I also knew I was not in a space where I could. I could not deep dive into my shadow work. I could not deconstruct the system that I was just coming to terms with. These were not things that I could do at that exact time, but I knew I needed to. I knew to be the person that I wanted to be, these things would have to change. But I was able to step into it without the guilt and without the shame, and I was able to put a foundation in place, or the start of a foundation that would lead me to this new path. And like I said, before I knew it, I was spending money in a different way. Before I knew it, the pathways in my brain were reminding me, my body guides were reminding me that I was not doing this because I had to. I was not doing this because it was making me poor and it was going to make me work. It reworked all those pathways to tell me I was doing it for a reason that told my nervous system, yeah, you're strong. Yeah, you're powerful. Yeah, you define the way you live your life. I was very slowly dipping my toe in the new pathway, in the nervous system, in the definitions. And before I knew it, I was coming to new realizations and new terms about things. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to deep dive into it and get it done right out of the way. Just give yourself a chance. Just give yourself a little opportunity for the future. And you do that by not feeling guilt about whatever it is, by not feeling shame about whatever it is, by not coming in and beating yourself up about it, but instead meeting yourself with grace, with kindness, and just with a fuck that, it's dumb sort of attitude, at least for me. Whatever works for you. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance. Even if you don't believe it, fake it until you make it. Even if you're not ready to deep dive into that body guide system, just know that they're there and try to hack it as best as you can, and use the hack for as long as it works. And when it stops, it stops. That's fine. That's the whole point of it, because it's just to help you start. It's just to help you start a new path, to get there, to start the little traces of a foundation. Because if you can just do it, if you can just start in whatever way you can figure it out, you will have a castle before you even know it. Okay, I know that was a lot. Don't worry about taking it all in. This video will be here for you when you're ready to come back and see it again. Just make little bookmarks in your brain. Just start to have a different sort of idea of how these things work. Start to play with it a little bit. Start to define things a little bit. Just start. All you have to do is start. And before you know it, you will have changed your life. Okay. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Hopefully y'all, my examples, when I give real life examples, when I give personal examples, I talk a lot. I know. Hopefully it wasn't too much. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you have ideas on what we should talk about next or what is coming up, or if you need more information about one of these steps. Let me know what you guys need, because I am here to make these videos for you so that all together we can fuck the system, okay?